I'm going to talk about rights. Not those rights, the other rights. Copyrights, intellectual rights, intellectual property rights. As a creative, I mentioned this before, as a creative you are basically working with rights. The Copyright Act of 1968 is the source of all things legal and illegal in this country in terms of copyright. As the major record companies found out in 2012, that copyright is very much being legislated in this country in favour of an import, rights importing. So it was set up to be a dumping ground for English copyrights as a colony of England. And we should remember that when we're doing our work, that we should know how this works. Typically, and not in all cases, but typically the person paying owns the copyright. So the person paying for the work owns the copyright unless the artist stipulates some other reason or there's some outside contract. So if you want to make perpetual types of revenues, you need to license, and you need to make sure that your licenses are paid. Rights come in bundles. They're not straight up. There's reproduction rights, there's mechanical rights. Music is the one I know best, so I'll talk about that. There's a public performance right in music. You get paid for a public performance of the thing. There's a publishing right, so the rights of the composers and the lyric writers. And then they get split differently when the thing gets performed live. There are all sorts of new rights wars in the streaming era. That's changing a whole lot of stuff because all of a sudden it's not restricted to a particular territory. So there's not, as soon as you put something up now, it's not instantly under the Australian copyright law, because the copyrights might be being triggered in Sweden or Botswana or Zimbabwe or England or anywhere. So you have to be able to keep a track of that. So really the most important right you have is about information about your rights, believe it or not. It's called metadata, and it's a very, very difficult and sticky problem to be dealing with in this day and age. I won't go too much into it. You'll find some exercises in this week's tute about that, and you'll have the opportunity to speak with other people about the kinds of rights involved. But I do encourage you to go and have a look at the 1968 Copyright Act. It's there for everybody to see. Go and see the difference between the rights in photography versus the rights in visual art, work of visual art, versus a print, versus a recording, versus a publishing agreement, on and on and on. For movies, they're all different. The rights in movies are different from the rights in song. It's all kinds of complicated. But don't ever forget, it's been set up as a dumping ground. It's not been set up for you. So you have to be very careful how you work with it, take control of your rights, and make sure you know what they are in every case. If you are in a group of people who are making stuff together, my advice is that you come to an agreement first, before even $1 comes through the door. Now, 20% of nothing is nothing, granted, but if you have an agreement in place, and it doesn't need to be complicated, it just needs to be a letter that everyone signs saying this is what we've agreed to in principle, and that'll protect you up to a decent point. It's the original agreement. So if someone pulls out, they walk away. Our rule used to always be anyone who pulls out walks away with nothing. So you can make your own rules depending on who invests what, because someone's going to have a credit card, someone's not going to have a credit card. Someone will be putting more money in, somebody will be putting more hours in. All of these things get too mixed up. Just be simple, split it up. If there's 4 people, I suggest 25% split. Don't try and make one person unless they own the idea, don't try and give one person more than the other. It doesn't sound very sensible perhaps, but if you're going out in small groups, it's going to be much easier for you to organise your splits, your licensing splits or your revenue splits in even shares, and then expect even work out of everybody. And have an out. Always have an out.